Chelsea fans, the transfer window is finally closed. Summer 2024 is going to be a transfer window definitely to remember. A lot of people are saying it was bad for Chelsea. I think it was actually quite misleading. And I do believe that Chelsea are inching in the right direction. The reason why I say it's misleading is because so much happened. So first of all, you guys missed Victor Osimhen, which was the big one. You signed an unnecessary amount of goalkeepers. You did reduce the wage bill by probably about half when you think about it, by getting rid of your highest earners. You exiled players who were not part of the project so that you could cut down the roster size. And then you brought in an exiled player from a different club. You brought in attacking players who are creative and have a lot of flair that I think are going to be really good for Chelsea in terms of making the game a lot more entertaining with the way that Enzo Maresca wants to play. And you completely ignored your defensive line. So all of that was kind of the summary behind Chelsea's transfer window this year. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the outgoing players. So I'm going to put them up on the screen. $30 million for Romelu Lukaku, the transfer completed to Napoli. He was your highest earner on the wage bill, so that's a good one. $42 million for Conor Gallagher to Atletico Madrid. I thought he was probably your best player, but looking at the transfer window, now that it's over, I don't think you guys are in as bad of a spot as you were when he left. Raheem Sterling, last-minute signing to Arsenal, on loan, no obligation to buy, and he will return to Chelsea at the end of the season, which is probably going to end up being a bad thing for you guys, I'm not going to lie. Chalobah out on loan to Crystal Palace. Again, no option or obligation for Crystal Palace to buy, so he will return, even though Sterling and Chalobah were two of the players that were exiled from Enzo Maresca's plans. And then you have Ben Chilwell, and I put a question mark by Ben Chilwell because what's he doing? There was no news of him going anywhere. He is probably just going to show up, train with the U15s, go home, and collect a really big paycheck because he is also one of your highest earners. So that's an interesting one because he's kind of just stuck in no man's land. Let's look at your incoming players. So $45 million that you guys paid to Atletico Madrid for Joao Felix. And obviously in his first game back as a Chelsea player, he impressed, did very well, scored a really nice goal. $60 million for Pedro Neto from Wolves. And Pedro Neto actually gave Joao Felix that assist. And everyone can agree Pedro Neto right now is starting to hit his prime. He's a fantastic player. A lot of teams wanted him from Wolves. He ended up going to Chelsea. At the beginning of the transfer window, you guys paid $35 million to Leicester City for Dewsbury Hall. Featured in a lot of your preseason matches. I don't think he's going to be a starter for you guys. And now that you have everyone back and for the most part everyone healthy, I think he's going to be a player that's going to be coming off the bench in the midfield for you. Jorgensen, one of the goalkeepers that you guys signed as the only reason I put him in here is because right now he's your second choice goalkeeper, so it actually applies. But you guys did sign, I don't know, you have 8 or 9 goalkeepers on the books, which can someone please ask the Chelsea board to explain to the fans why you have that many goalkeepers. You paid $25 million for him from Villarreal. And then you got literally last minute, even past the transfer window, it felt like, you guys got JADON Sancho on loan from Manchester United with an obligation to purchase as long as, not as long, but depending on how he performs is the price that you guys are going to pay for the loan or for the final purchase at the end of it. So that was the big one that happened. But like I said, you guys did miss out on Victor Osimhen. And we'll talk a little bit about Victor Osimhen in a second. Actually, you know what? Let's just talk about him right now. Victor Osimhen, he was exiled from Napoli. Not exiled, but he was done with Napoli. He said he doesn't want to play there. The way things were handled there, he wasn't happy. However, I think Victor Osimhen thinks he's Kylian Mbappe. I mean, the guy had loads of offers on the table, fantastic offers from Saudi Arabia, which could still be a potential move for him. But just the fact that the delegation went to go meet with his agents, couldn't come up with a deal. He very often said that he was not going to reduce his wages, which obviously presents a big problem for Chelsea, even though you guys freed up a lot of room on the wage bill. I just think that you guys probably dodged the bullet on Victor Osimhen because as good of a player as he was, I think he thinks of himself a little too highly. And for what you guys are trying to build under Enzo Maresca, it seems like he's going to be the type of coach that if someone is not in line with the rest of the group, they're going to be exiled, which is already kind of happened. So as much as you guys probably wanted Victor Osimhen, I think ultimately it's a pretty good move to miss out on him, because I'll show you guys the lineup in a second and all of the players that you guys have and why the front line actually looks pretty damn good. Let's actually, before we get to the lineup though, let's look at the wages. So this is going to be an interesting one, because we talked a little bit about the wages. You guys had Raheem Sterling and Romelu Lukaku as your two highest earners, both at $325,000 a week. So you get rid of both of those guys. You also had Ben Chilwell at $200,000, which he's still on $200,000 because he's still, like I said, training with the U15s or whatever it is he's doing. But you're hoping that, or Enzo Maresca is hoping that he finds a solution so that he leaves permanently and you guys can free up a little bit more space. I want to talk a little bit about Cole Palmer. If you guys look at Cole Palmer, he just renewed his contract. So Cole Palmer, 9-year contract extension. So he's there until 2032. And this is an updated wage bill for Cole Palmer because he was earning a lot less before this. But now he's on 130,000 euros a week. 130,000 euros for Cole Palmer, who is arguably your best player at Chelsea. So if I'm Cole Palmer, the first thing that I'm doing is I am firing my agent, because I just signed a 9-year extension, which means I am at Chelsea for another 9 years, earning 130,000 euros when you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, let's say 7 because Raheem Sterling's not there, 7 players who are earning more than me when I think I'm the best player. I am the best player at Chelsea if I'm Cole Palmer, right? Now, 130,000, it's not like he's going to be eating ramen noodles for the rest of his career at Chelsea to make a living or whatever, but you would think that a player of that caliber, if he had a good agent, he should be making closer to 200 to 250 at least at the minimum, because can you imagine if these are the wages in 2024, can you imagine the increase in the wages by 2032? So I think there's going to be just a lot more players earning much more than Cole Palmer. So that's a whole different story. I just thought that I'd kind of bring that one out. Okay, so we'll put these back up so you guys can remember the incoming and the outgoing players. But I did want to talk a little bit about the loans. This is the part that might haunt you guys, or might come back to haunt you guys in the future, is the fact that you have Raheem Sterling, who is clearly not part of the project, and Chalobah, who is also not part of the project, both out on loan with no obligation to buy. And this happened because I think the transfer window got close to closing. It was a little bit of a panic. You needed to get rid of them, and the only way you could do it is by making sure that there was no obligation for the other clubs to buy them. So I think that's going to be a problem for you guys in the future, especially when they come back. If they haven't figured out a long-term solution, those are players that are going to go back into your books, especially Raheem Sterling with the amount of money that he is making. Now, with that all being said, that's most of the negatives out of the way. You missed Victor Osimhen. You have players out on loan with no obligation. Let's take a look at the possible lineup for Chelsea and why I think you guys are actually getting closer to being a legitimate top 4 contender. So if we pull up the starting 11, or the best potential 11 for Chelsea, you guys have Sanchez in goal. You have Malo Gusto, who I think is a fantastic player. Fofana and Colwill, who a lot of people would have said that you guys should have purchased a more experienced center back. And I'll tell you what. What's his name? I already forgot his name. Sergio Ramos. Sergio Ramos is available, or was available. I don't know if he still is. But I don't know. Just throwing it out there. You guys took Thiago Silva when he was halfway to retirement. And I'm surprised that Sergio Ramos was not something that you guys pursued, because I think that could have been a very interesting acquisition for Chelsea. But anyway, Cucurella on the left, who's been actually playing pretty well apart from the Manchester City game. Moises Caicedo, who's in the middle, probably a position that he's going to fight with for Lavia when Lavia comes back and is healthy. You have Enzo Fernandez and Cole Palmer as the 2 10s, as the 2 players slightly higher in front of Caicedo. Both of those I don't think are really in any danger of losing their spot. And then up top, this is where it really gets interesting. You have Madueke, you have Jackson, and you have Pedro Neto. Pedro Neto, I put him as a starter because I think Mykhailo Mudryk is close to being exiled. Enzo Maresca, talked about how he supports him. He wants him to do well. He thinks it's a decision mistake, not an ability mistake that he's making. But I think we're getting closer and closer to Mudryk being pushed out of Chelsea, and Enzo Maresca, I think, is losing his patience. So that's why I replaced Mudryk with Neto. Now, the front three, this is where it gets interesting because Jackson, you can replace with Nkunku off the bench. All right. You also have Joao Felix and Sancho now coming off the bench. And all of those players, so Joao Felix, Sancho, Pedro Neto, Madueke, are all extremely creative and entertaining players. You guys are going to be playing a style of football in the attacking half that's going to be beautiful to watch. And we saw it a little bit in the last match that you guys played. But I think it's clear that Enzo Maresca, although Todd Bowley might not have a plan, Enzo Maresca is actually in a good headspace when he's thinking about how he wants to build his attack because of the players that you guys have. So that's why I think it gets really, really interesting and really positive for you guys. Overall, it's a misleading window. A lot of people are going to say it's bad because you missed out on Victor Osimhen. I think you guys were going to miss out on him regardless because Victor Osimhen is, it was his fault that the deal didn't go through because Chelsea was willing to do what they could to get him. And while you guys slightly ignored your defenders or your back line, you brought in a lot of attack and creativity in the front line that's going to make matches really interesting to watch. So I know I missed probably 3 or 4, 5 or 6 players. I think in total there was like 13 incoming players and 21 or 20 outgoing players. So there was a lot because of how big Chelsea's roster is. But let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think of Chelsea's transfer window? Do you like the signings? Do you like the last minute signing of JADON Sancho? How do you feel about missing out on Victor Osimhen? And what do you feel about the loans, the players out on loan with no obligation to buy? How that's going to affect you guys negatively in the future? Let me know in the comment section down below. But Chelsea, not too bad. Not too bad.